Field Marshal Erwin Rommel believes the first 24 hours of the invasion will be decisive. He will say to an aide, "The fate of Germany depends on the outcome." For the Allies, as well as Germany, it will be the longest day.
Rommel thinks that you have to defeat the Allied invasion when it comes at the water's edge. But the thing is, there's so many points that the Allies can invade. They've scattered fortifications everywhere. So he's like, how do I take this incomplete Atlantic wall and fill in the gaps? And the way you do it is you do it with things that are relatively cheap, like tank obstacles, like mines.
Rommel's strategy is to stop the Allies on the beaches. He can then bring in his panzers where necessary.
Rommel has a lot of experience fighting the Western powers. He knows this isn't going to be easy. Every minute he prepares, he believes, is a minute closer to a German victory.
In Britain, the Allies amass resources for Operation Overlord. The United States sends soldiers, tanks, aircraft, and large amounts of supplies.
You have to coordinate this massive Allied coalition, which by now is entirely dominated by the Americans, you know, on the supply side, right? You've got to ship over all the oil, all the materiel, all the vehicles.
The scale of Operation Overlord is just enormous. You're talking about nearly 7,000 vessels involved. You're talking about tens of thousands of artillery pieces. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of men. But what that means is that Britain, for the last 2.5 years, has just been turning into one huge, great big military camp.
To deceive the Germans, the Allies devise and execute a deception plan. Operation Fortitude is a false army operation created to trick the Germans into thinking the Allies will land at Pas de Calais, which is the shortest route across the English Channel.
The elements that were involved in trying to convince the Germans that the attack was coming in another place, another direction, another location, it's massive.
False radio traffic, the creation of false armies. They use dummy vehicles, balloons and rubber tanks and aircraft.
This is all part of the deception campaign to keep the Germans guessing until the last second.
Eisenhower hopes Fortitude will prompt the Germans to concentrate their forces near Calais, rather than Normandy.
The Germans have about 750,000 men who are poised to be able to mobilize to wherever the Allies invade in Northern Europe. And so he knows that this is going to be a race. It's going to be the Allies over water and the Germans over land. And the Germans are always going to have an advantage in moving over land. And so Eisenhower needs to slow them down. The only tool that Eisenhower has at his disposal are the bombers.
Eisenhower knows from previous experience he can't pull off an amphibious invasion and keep it ashore without dominance in the air. Unless Allied air power is there for Eisenhower, this landing is never going to happen.
Starting in 1944, Allied Air Force strategy focuses on destroying the Luftwaffe so that troops can land in Normandy without fear of German air attacks. But Eisenhower also wants to hit railways and transportation hubs throughout France.
Eisenhower wants the roads destroyed, he wants the bridges destroyed, he wants the railway yards destroyed. He does not want one German unit moving 2 miles down the road without having to build another bridge. And so Eisenhower says, those very valuable bomber formations need to be working to my plan. Now the bomber commander's like, no, we've got our own way of winning this war.
Everybody wants to support the landings in Normandy, but the Allied air forces argued that the best way to do that is to continue with more heavy attacks on Germany.
This becomes a knockdown, drag-out fight. So Eisenhower basically threatens to resign if he is not given control over all the air forces. He's fighting day in and day out with the British, with the French, with his own bosses back in Washington on every little detail of the war, and everyone is throwing up nothing but obstructions. And he just doesn't have time for this anymore, right? He is at his wit's end.
He needs overwhelming strength to guarantee success. Because you know what? You've got one of history's most effective armies, Hitler's panzers, who will be hurled at those Allied landing forces so they can chop you down in the shallows and turn the waters red with your blood.